everyone, this is Britt of Brit in Toyland coming to you with a bit of a different video today, not a toy review. This is going to be my one legendary scene video for the 10-year anniversary of the Legend of Korra. Shout out to Airspeed Prime's YouTube channel. He put out a video telling people about this, and it was started by Antoine Bandele, so check out both their channels. I'll put links in the description to both of those. But yeah, so it has been 10 years since The Legend of Korra first officially aired on Nickelodeon. Obviously, the first two episodes did come out a little bit earlier, back when we the fans unlocked the first two episodes on Korra Nation's Tumblr back in the day. And yeah, it was such an exciting time getting those first two episodes. I was like reminiscing today about how that sequence in Welcome to Republic City where Korra just rides Naga across the frozen tundra and her theme starts playing. That's really when the series hit me and captured my heart. So I'm excited to remember it a bit today and talk about one legendary scene that I think we can all agree is the most legendary. And that is when this happened. Okay, I'm kidding. Sort of. It's a legendary scene in its own right and owns a special place in my heart. But no, I didn't pick this one. It's a different one. Asami, did you know that Korra likes Mako? So genius. But no, my actual favorite, not favorite, but legendary scene is this one. So the legendary scene I picked for Legend of Korra is the scene with Tenzin and the Air Kids after the return of the Airbenders in episode K301, A Breath of Fresh Air. So I chose this scene to sort of encapsulate the emotions behind the return of the Airbenders with Harmonic Convergence. As Tenzin said, it's after 170 years that the Airbenders have sort of fully returned in full force. And in this scene in particular, I chose because of the emotions it brings up. You know, we start out with Tenzin sitting on the crest there, looking at Aang's statue, and he's saying, you know, it's like a dream, Dad. And, you know, it brings up immediately the emotions and the binds that connect these two series. You know, we spent all of Avatar: The Last Airbender with Aang and his crew and saw, you know, the turmoil and the tragedy of him discovering that all of the Airbenders are gone. And everyone he's ever known, all his friends, his family, they've disappeared in the 100 years that he was in the iceberg. And it's an incredibly powerful moment with Tenzin just to point out that it is so like a dream. It's like what Aang would have dreamed of. It's sort of what the fans of the show would have dreamed of. Aang getting Airbenders back into the world after 170 years. And so I love that connective emotional tissue between the two series here. And you know, the kids come in and they're sort of thinking maybe a little more superficially about the new Airbenders, with Iki saying like, I don't want to share my room and I like my personal space, and Milo's thinking of like armies and being a commander like Boomy. And then you get this super emotional moment of Tenzin saying, but they might have enough to fill the temples again. And he starts to cry a little bit, which always really gets me. And it's, again, you just think back to Avatar and Aang, you know, in 103, Southern Air Temple, coming there and finding that the place, like he said, it used to be so full of monks and lemurs and just life, and there was nothing there, you know, all compounded by finding Gyatso's skeleton. And then again, you know, Northern Air Temple, they had new people there, the refugees, but it wasn't the Airbenders, and you know, so on and so forth with the Eastern and the Western air temples. And so it's this kind of, again, this dreamlike idea of being able to fill those temples with real Airbenders again, and how much that would have meant to Aang and how much it means to Tenzin as well. It's just a really beautiful scene, and it's so capped off nicely with the kids sort of realizing like, oh, Tenzin, their dad, is crying because of how much this means to him. And, he even says, I just wish your grandfather could see this. And in a way, it sort of shows that he is seeing it through his family with Tenzin and Bumi becoming an airbender, as well as his grandchildren, and even, through Korra. Obviously, the ties to the Pat's lives have been severed at this point, but it's hard to say, like, in terms of the logistics of it all, but you feel like there is still a part of Aang that's in Korra and all of the avatars in a certain way, at least on an emotional level. So, a very beautiful moment there, and Milo caps it off by saying, no, don't worry, Dad will help you, and they have their nice little hug at the end there. And, I think it's a really good way of starting off Tenzin's arc for Book 3 of having to now sort of be the leader of the Air Nation. Milo is wondering if he's going to be the president of the Air Nation, but he does have to be sort of the leader and almost like a father/leader to a whole group of people who were not brought up like the Air Kids, with the teachings of airbending and all their traditions. So it's a nice way to start him off. He's very hopeful, he's like emotional, and it's interesting sort of the things the kids say, how it sort of lends to what's going to happen, like Milo saying, oh, I hope we have an army and I want to be a commander, which is kind of the approach Tenzin tries to take at one point when he speaks with Bumi. So it's almost a fun little foreshadowing there. You also, you get a little bit of Jinora's arc, a little hint of that there, in that, he says we have to get used to the fact that we're not going to be the only airbenders in the world anymore. And it's almost sort of getting used to the fact that Jinora is not a kid anymore, and she's one of the top airbenders going into this now that they have so many more. And of course we see that through her arc in Book 3 as she, eventually gets her tattoos and really steps up, as she had in Book 2 as well. I also just enjoy the fact that it's almost, again, Tenzin says it's like a dream. And you sort of consider how, Aang obviously didn't want him to hold the entirety of the Air Nation culture on his shoulders, but, Tenzin being the serious guy that he is, he really put that pressure on himself. And it's almost, in a strange way, like he's succeeded in this moment, like he didn't, have anything to do with Harmonic Convergence. But he's succeeded in a way in that airbenders, there are more airbenders now. It doesn't just reside on his bloodline or the bloodline of his children. There are many different people who are airbenders now who can carry on and pass on that line and those traditions. So in a way, it's like there's, in this moment, perhaps a little less pressure. It's a weight that's lifted. And you kind of see that too in the fact that his family is so much more involved in helping with the Air Nation and rebuilding it. Like Kaya and Iki and Milo stay at Air Temple Island and take in more and more people who are discovering they have airbending. So again, you see Kaya involved even as a waterbender. So you're seeing that mending of fences that started to occur in Book 2 with the family dynamic. And then of course Bumi actually gets airbending, and he has to sort of take on, he's the older brother, he's the commander, but he sort of has to defer to Tenzin a little bit in the teaching. And he's a little bit of a class clown, obviously, at first, and then tries to get Tenzin to be a rough and tough sort of sergeant. And, it's a really nice, I think, progression from Book 2, where they had to sort of really hash out their family dynamic and the grievances they still had from when they were kids before they could come together. And you really see that here with the rebuilding of the Air Nation, to see all 3 Katang siblings working to rebuild. I'll also talk a little bit, obviously, about the thing that kicks off this whole arc is, of course, Bumi and Boomju had a fight regarding their preferences for knitwear. And Boomy tumbles off the cliff through a tree. He looks like he's going to fall and have a horrible injury, but just as he's falling, he flails his arms and he airbends and manages to hover just above the sand for a moment before he collapses onto the sand, which apparently still really hurt. And it's such a great almost conceit there, and you're thinking like, is this just super like delayed airbending that happened for Boomy because he's the son of Aang? But then no, you know, you get Mako and Korra having their respective encounters with Daw, and he's also airbending. And, you know, it's fascinating. Again, they hash it out. Harmonic Convergence seems to have, like, detected that sort of imbalance that was going on with the world and provided bending to various people, airbending to various people to sort of balance that out, which is fascinating in its own right. I won't get into that here because it get very cosmic and complicated. But again, I just love the arc that they were able to achieve by reintroducing the Airbenders. Again, the emotion that creates between the two series, where we follow Aang and the tragedy and the loss, the genocide of the Airbenders, and they're finally brought back in a way, you know, we didn't think would happen for hundreds and hundreds of years when, you know, the generations of Katang grandkids and great-grandkids and so on sort of brought about more Airbenders. So it's a beautiful scene. Like I said, I get very emotional when Tenzin says that they might be able to fill the temples again, and he has those tears in his eyes. It's incredibly beautiful, with the statue of Aang in the background there. You just really feel that connective tissue between the two series, and you respect the series Legend of Korra so much, and showing how far it was able to take what we had in Avatar: The Last Airbender and show us new great accomplishments. So I think that's all I want to say about this scene overall. Again, I think it kicks off Tenzin and Janora's arcs for Book 3 really nicely, and as I said, just captures the emotions, the connective tissue that binds the two series, and really sets the stage for an incredible Book 3. So that is my legendary moment, legendary scene, as it were. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to cap it off with a nice little Tenzin and the Air Kids hug, minus Rohan, because he just a baby. If you want to throw that little meme in there. But yeah, this is my legendary scene for the Legend of Korra. It's blown my mind still. It's been a decade now. Again, I think this, as Morgan said on Airspeed Prime, his channel, it's open for other people to put their scenes out as well, sort of add to the conversation, the reminiscing of the 10-year anniversary of the Legend of Korra. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you on the next one.